Hi guys, we're just on the Melbourne leg of our national tour, and today we had the pleasure of interviewing Horizon State co-founder Jamie Skella. So it's an amazing interview, and at the conclusion of that interview, Jamie actually got some news which he's now allowed to break. So stay tuned for that exclusive at the end of this interview as well. Cheers. Hi guys, thanks for tuning in to another episode of Nuggets News. We're very lucky today to be in Melbourne at Jamie Skella, the founder of Horizon State, at his home. So thanks for having us, Jamie.
Welcome to my humble abode.
Mate, Horizon State, it's been absolutely phenomenal in terms of the price rise recently, and probably remiss not to mention that, I guess, but the real nuts and bolts, what we want to dive into is what the project's doing, the philosophy behind it, I guess.
Well, look, as we sort of touched on earlier offline, is that most of the recent price appreciation is really thanks to our community. There hasn't been too much brand new exciting news that we've released firsthand over the past few weeks. It's obviously been break, but the community's really rallied. I think it's quite an honour to be perceived amongst this space, this industry, as one of the projects that is worth paying attention to and is working on some noble causes. And I think that's got people excited. You know, it's not just modernising, for example, media ownership or distribution in regards to financial assets. This is something with a real world use case that can actually have a really big impact on people's lives.
For maybe those people that haven't followed Horizon State closely, how would you sum it up, mate, just in a nutshell?
Yeah, well, in a nutshell, it's blockchain-based voting, and by utilising blockchain, we're able to effectively create a record of the vote, which can't be hacked. So a tamper-proof ballot box, which in the longer term, we hope will work towards the eradication of corruption in our electoral processes and other democratic processes within institutions, not just necessarily within politics.
And then the broader scope, other than just voting, I guess, is reducing friction in all decision-making processes, corporate,
Absolutely.
Educational, all those other things. That's as well.
Right. So in the context of politics, we know that the further people are away from one of their polling stations in the United States, as an example, where voting is not compulsory, but this reduces the likelihood that they're actually even going to go and vote. If you're the sort of person that doesn't necessarily think that your vote counts anyway, then needing to drive or travel to a polling station is even less of an attractive proposition. And so by putting that opportunity in people's pockets, we'll not only be able to increase efficiencies, such as reducing costs for these organising bodies, but make sure that we're able to get participation up as well and actually have people be delivered information and be able to make better informed decisions in their own democratic processes for the benefit of their community and country.
Unlike a lot of ICOs that are just a white paper with an idea, you guys have already got a working product of sorts, and what's in store in the future?
So there's a lot going on at the moment. Nemo, our CTO, hasn't taken a break. He's been working literally all break long, and during that process has hired 3 new developers to work on the project with us. Look, we've had a product up and running since Feb 2016, sorry. That would be quite an accomplishment. Before Bitcoin. And since Feb of 2016, it's been being used by a not-for-profit democratic movement called MyVote, who are based here in Melbourne, and they've run 5 or 6 national votes with their membership. So it was largely a minimum viable product. It was something that we put together based on a sort of a concept that I devised, and it worked, and we saw a lot of interest from it. Now we are rolling out versions of the application to be used in Davos at the World Economic Forum. People may remember, for those that have been paying attention, that we also have a relationship with 2 United Nations IGOs and are working towards applications in relation to the Sustainable Development Goals for the United Nations. And then, of course, there's some more of the obvious and mainstream stuff happening as well. We're working with some big corporates. We're working with a global NGO on applying this technology to their constituency and membership. Also, a number of ongoing conversations with government at various levels. So some councils here in Australia, some national governments elsewhere. So 2018 is going to be big, I think.
I was talking to a number of other Australian projects, and they're talking about how it might be harder in Australia and developed countries with the current legislation in place. So do you face different challenges in countries like Australia and the US versus those developing countries versus developed?
Yeah, I think the way I'd frame it is less about challenges and more about diversification in our product and what we need to offer our customers. It's very, very different because we cover such large sets and diverse sets of customers and industries, the requirements for each of them is also quite diverse. And so when you think about how we will apply our technology to a global NGO or some kind of enterprise or private institution, they usually have very, very specific processes and policies and procedures that are already in place for access and eligibility and authentication. And so that makes things quite simple for us in terms of being able to understand who is eligible and making sure that we can make sure one vote per one person, if that is indeed what the body wants. But then when we start to think about governments both in Australia and especially in developing nations, things aren't necessarily so simple, and so we need to be working very, very carefully with them on the best solutions. Now, as an example, you look over at Afghanistan, who we've been talking to, and you look over at India, where large percentages of the population still don't have smartphones. We have to think about combinations and amalgamations of technologies to still improve efficiencies and improve the legitimacy of outcome, while appreciating that it isn't going to be a perfect, simple solution, not as simple as the application or an enterprise.
Yeah, awesome. So, using the decision token, HST, what would it look like from start to finish for something like the plebiscite that took place recently, from the person voting with that smartphone in their hand all the way to the work that goes on behind the scenes from the government's perspective?
So the token with Horizon State represents an intra-ecosystem currency. It's effectively the economic unit that pays for access to features and functions such as lodging votes to the blockchain, constituency incentivisation, campaign fundraising, for independents looking to challenge for seats. And so all of these things effectively use HST. And these are priced in different ways for different customers. And the reason this is the case is because, for example, if we were to have a price per vote, so to speak, for the Australian government or the US government, then trying to apply that same cost per vote to developing nations such as Afghanistan or Indonesia simply doesn't work. We'd price them out of the product. And so the way it works is effectively we create a fiat, a local economy price for our customers. This removes friction and improves our speed to market with them, because they don't have to worry so much about cryptocurrency necessarily. And the exchange that we develop within our product effectively converts their AUD or USD or GBP payments into HST, which is purchased from the free market, ready for application and use for that specific campaign. And so you've got, for example, the global NGO who we're working with, who might run multiple votes per year or multiple engagements per year, and then you have others which might only run one every few years. And so they would be kind of buying the allocation of HST required to run those in an ad hoc but ongoing basis. And so while all that might sound a little bit daunting, the bottom line is that it's ultimately quite a simple supply and demand model. The more customers we have and the more activity they conduct within our platform, then the better it is for us as a business and indeed for current token holders.
So there might be pools of Horizon State locked up all over the globe doing different voting and democratic process, which is really exciting. And a lot of people sort of want to know what gives it that intrinsic value, and that you've certainly just explained that for us. So, mate, I know you said you can't give too much away. You're in a lot of talks, but what excites you most? Where do you see this going in 12 months from now and ultimately long term?
Well, I think the next 12 and 24, it's going to be a lot of business as usual, for us at least. Certainly exciting, and I think there's a lot that's going to get the community and our customers very, very excited in terms of the features that are being built and the opportunities that exist commercially. But longer term than that, I really hope to see this have significant influence and make a significant change to the way that we conduct ourselves, at a societal level. So right now we're talking about improving efficiencies, such as reducing costs, within institutions. We're talking about being able to enable, higher amounts of participation by putting it in people's pockets for governmental use. But really where I'd like to see this go is that in a few years from now, if we have residents of the United States or any other developing nation for that matter, utilising Horizon State powered technology, and they recognise that it is secure, we're over that lump of people necessarily being sceptical, and now it's accepted that internet voting is now safe and can be conducted without high levels of tinfoil hat scepticism, then we wind up in a place where people will start to question how we govern ourselves, given the opportunity that now exists for immediate and frequent and ongoing conversation with that constituency. So why, for example, am I only being asked by my governing body questions on a certain topic that affects me, every few months or every few years. Typically, it's normally every few years. And so being able to arrive at a destination where you and I have the opportunity to vote on issues that affect us as those issues are taking place, I think is a really powerful concept.
So effectively, if there's an issue arises, we can get to the point where, it's going to be this Sunday, we might all be able to vote on our phone about something that is really important that we all care about in a transparent.
And look, I think adding to that, a really, really powerful proposition for this kind of solution is the fact that we now, through having a responsive web app or a native app for an iPhone or an Android, is that we can start to think about how we better inform the people that are making the decisions. So it's one thing to improve the efficiency of decision making and have people have their say more frequently on issues that affect them, but that's not necessarily going to improve the outcome of our democratic sort of processes. So it's about making sure that we also create a future where we're able to improve the quality of decisions that can be made, and thus the quality of outcomes for our communities.
So Horizon State could become a platform for distribution of unbiased information and that sort of thing that then people can make their decisions.
So look, that's already part of the functionality. That's what currently exists for MyVote, but it's not Horizon State that comprises these information packs. It's the body that's running the vote. And so utilising MyVote as an example, because they're a great one, is that they have an internationally distributed team of researchers and PhDs and analysts, and they look at all the information on any given issue that they want the Australian public to vote on. These researchers are Chinese and American and Australian. They're from the left of politics and they're from the right of politics. And so through their collaboration, the information packs that are delivered to MyVote are world-leading in terms of their objectivity and their lack of bias. Now, they aren't completely void of bias, because whenever you interpret information as humans, there is some kind of bias applied, but it's certainly better than most other information sources, way better than television news and most of the mainstream publications. So that's the sort of thing that we'd like to see more of our customers adopt. I think it's going to be a pretty profound thing.
So with all these people working on these little projects in the background, mate, how big is the team now and what's it grown from?
So look, it started in an interesting way, because this technology was born out of MyVote.
Yeah.
And at that point in time, it was just me devising and leading the project with a bunch of outsourced resources. And very quickly, this became a standalone business and a standalone project. We've spun it out and started building a team around that. We have 3 co-founders and very quickly moved up to about 9 staff. And that was even during the sort of ICO process. Some of them were part-time, some of them were on contract, but these equations are changing, and we've just brought on 3 more as well. I'd be pretty surprised that if by the end of 2018, the team wasn't looking about in the vicinity of 50.
50, that's fantastic, mate. I guess from my point of view, I think 2018 is the year when these fantastic projects get recognised, because I'm sure that you encounter it. You might go to talk to someone and they still think of cryptocurrency. They hear that word and it's still associated with the dark net and all these doom and gloom things. So have you had much of that, mate, or do you think that's definitely been changed?
Not too much from a business perspective. I think we've been quite lucky in that most of the commercial opportunities we've had are ones that have actually come to us. We've had to do so far quite little proactive business development, and it's because obviously blockchain being a buzzword, whether it's government or financial institutions, everybody seems to be thinking about it. The phone rings a few times a day at least with independent inquiries as to potential consultation, helping them understand how they can apply it, because it's obviously already looking like a pretty big deal in business. People want to explore it, but interestingly on the flip side, with family and friends and social circles, there does seem to be a tremendous divide, and I think journalism falls into this divide as well. You've got some who are advocates, and then others who talk about it as if it's a Ponzi scheme or a dark web, currency, and that's sort of the end of it. Look, I think as it stands right now, given the market is so heavily a speculator's one, I think there's probably a little bit to be taken from both sides. But largely speaking, as somebody who understands the technology and some of the business applications, I think the future is bright. I do think this is world-changing tech. I hope that we get to play an important part of that. It's certainly going to be an exciting few years. Yeah. Awesome.
Well, mate, I really appreciate you having us around today. It's been a fantastic chat as always. So thanks, Jamie. Cheers, mate. So guys, I hope you enjoyed that chat with Jamie. As I said, after we finished that interview, Jamie got a phone call with some exciting news that MyVote is now going to be used in trials in India and Belgium. So huge population obviously in India. We all know that Horizon State token has intrinsic value if we get large populations using it. So fantastic stuff. These guys are kicking goals, and I'm sure I'll deliver you more Horizon State updates in the future. Jamie's joining us on the rest of our tour in Sydney and Brisbane as well. So I'll talk to you again soon, guys. Cheers.